Ladies and gentlemen, hey, hi, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for stopping by. Man, oh man, is today an exciting day in the world of Call of Duty. The official reveal for Modern Warfare 2 is upon us. We're gonna be breaking down the full trailer and everything in a video later today because what we have right now is an absurd amount of information on MW2. Thanks to Call of Duty and Activision and Infinity Ward, I was actually able to get an early look at Modern Warfare 2, and I've got details on multiplayer, the general basics of the game, the campaign, all sorts of stuff. So as we break it all down today, if you enjoy the video at any point, or if you're excited for MW2, let me know by dropping a like on it. And if you're new to the channel, or if you have not already subscribed, every day I got you covered with all things going on in COD between Warzone, Warzone 2, Modern Warfare 2 now, and everything else in between. You're gonna find it right here. So feel free to hit that sub button and turn on those post notifications. Also, real quick announcement, Gamer Advantage did just drop some brand new frames as part of their sustainability collection. So if you guys want to check that out, link will be down in the description below, and code Immortal gets you a nice little discount on that. But yeah, earlier this week I was actually able to see MW2 early. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to play it. I was actually invited out to LA, but if you guys don't know, I have a pretty bad anxiety issue that I've been struggling with for quite some time. So traveling and whatnot, not really my cup of tea, not really something I'm comfortable with. Very disappointed that I wasn't able to go out and actually see the game and whatnot, but I was able to actually take part in a virtual viewing of the game where they told us all sorts of stuff, and man, I am so excited to share it with you guys today. I have a very lengthy Word doc of notes that I took during this meeting that hopefully conveys a good amount of info. We got a ton of campaign stuff that we're going to start off with here, then we get into some multiplayer stuff later on into the video, and we're going to be like sort of condensing some of this information in videos later on this week and early next week so that it's more precise and clear. This is just a general rundown of what to expect with MW2. So first up, this is how Infinity Ward sort of described their game thus far. This is the widest variety of gameplay yet when it comes to all the modes: campaign, multiplayer, co-op, you name it. The game is going to feature plenty of large play spaces with massive player numbers, including lots of AI, but also lots of players sort of combined into one. More on that here in a bit. And it's going to create environments and engagements for everyone as well. Whether you're a top tier player, whether you're a casual player, whether you might not be that good, maybe you're newer to Call of Duty and you're still getting the hang of things, there's going to be something for everyone in this game. And this is what I love the most about what they said in this little description of their game. This is the best that they've ever done. Infinity Ward, obviously they're going to be high on their own games all the time. They were super high on MW 2019. To say they've now one-upped that game and created something even better, I'm very excited for it. And based off what we saw earlier on this week and based off what we're talking about in this video, I'm kind of on board with it. It does look like it's going to be the best COD game yet in terms of what it presents. Obviously everyone's going to have their opinions. You might not like this aspect, you might love this aspect, but as far as what it presents, it looks incredible. So this game is not just an upgrade of MW 2019. It's not MW 2019 2.0. The gun systems, the audio systems, animations, the world environments, everything has been refined, been upgraded, been improved, and you could see that. We saw pre-alpha versions of the game. And it looked incredible. It looked like it's something that could drop tomorrow if it needed to, right? And it'd still be, competitive in the current gaming market and industry. It definitely looks upgraded in basically every facet, right? The game's story base is obviously a sequel to MW 2019 that ended off with, Price and Lastwell talking about the creation of Task Force 141. This game picks up 3 years later. Task Force 141 has been operating all over the world in that time. They've got old allies, new enemies. That was one of the taglines for the game. Primarily, it's based around Price, Gaz, Soap, Ghost, Laswell, Alejandro Vargas, who is one of the new characters that we saw revealed earlier on this month with like the initial big reveals. Then also Philip Graves, who is like the head of Shadow Company from what they described. So Shadow Company is in fact back. Another thing the devs sort of reiterated is that the mission for the game has not changed. Back in MW 2019, Price had a line, "We get dirty so the world stays clean." The mission still stands in this campaign, so it's going to be that same sort of feel as before when it comes to how things play out. And for one, I love the MW 2019 campaign. In my opinion, it's the best that we've ever had. MW2 is a close second, but this, I'm so excited to see if it can in fact one-up the MW 2019 story. But yeah, same mission. They get dirty, so the world stays clean. Now, one of the main premises of this whole campaign story in and of itself is that a US airstrike apparently kills a foreign general who's hostile. Revenge is promised from that attack, and then Task Force 141 and the Mexican Special Forces have to stop them before that revenge is, you know, acted upon, I guess you could say. And this is based all over the world, so we got plenty of different locations, some of which we actually got to see in campaign missions. So let's go into detail on what I was able to see via some of these campaign previews. The first mission that we saw was called Night War. This one starts off under the cover of nightfall. They're basically pushing into a compound. If you guys remember the Clean House mission from MW 2019, arguably one of the best campaign missions of all time, this is very similar to that. It's very stealthy, objective based, very like Zero Dark 30-esque, I guess you could say. The game itself, for the lighting that we saw presented, it was of course over a Zoom call, so the quality is only so good. Looked incredible. The I guess the variation of the lighting between when you're seeing different lights off in the distance, when there's flashes, when there's fire in certain areas, when you're under the cover of nightfall, it looks incredible. The HUD was a bit interesting. I imagine it'll get refined, but it didn't look like anything too crazy. And like I said, the Zoom visual quality can only be so good. It's not gonna be nearly as good as playing it in person, right? But it looked beautiful. The audio though, MW 2019's audio, as far as like a holistic thing when it comes to the campaign, obviously you have your gripes about footstep audio or certain stuff here and there, but the game's audio with the environment was phenomenal. It somehow got even better. And again, the Zoom audio can only be so good. It still sounded incredible. The guns have personality. At one point, they were fighting and an RPG came flying in. It sounds incredible. Like, it feels very immersive and sounds very immersive from that. Like I said, this mission was very Clean House-esque, breach and clears type scenario. The way that the characters interacted with the environment, walking on stairs, phenomenal looking. Absolutely something that is improved upon from before, and it just looks so good. Some things that I was actually able to take away from this mission: mounting is in fact back. They had night vision where you don't fully ADS, it's just like that laser back from like the realism modes in MW 2019. We saw several different weapons here. The main weapon that was shown was the MP7. It looked like it had personality when you shot it. It wasn't like some of the Vanguard guns that are just straight laser beams, no recoil. It seemed like it had some kick. Now, of course, you might change some settings around. 120 FOV, that might change, but it looked like the weapon was actually fun to use and had a feel to it. But the MP7 was shown. A weapon called the K block was shown, which had a preview icon that was basically the PP Bison from MW 2019. We saw some different weapons called Lock or Latch. There was a Latch 56 or a Lock 56 and a Lock 16. I think there was a Lock 11 as well, so that could have just been placeholder weapons. There was a Bryson 500 and M16 hybrid, so several different weapons here, and we'll talk more on the gunsmith and weaponry a bit later on into the video. But that was the first mission that we saw. The second mission we saw was called Wet Work. It takes place in Amsterdam, and this one features Price and Gaz, basically with water-based combat. Folks, swimming is here. MW 2022 or MW2, and I would imagine Warzone 2 is gonna feature a lot of swimming. Water was a major emphasis, and we're gonna be getting to the H2O talk here also a bit later on into the video. But there was swimming mechanics where you could dive underwater, use that to maneuver, combined with stealth mechanics, with takedowns that would happen in and out of the water, shooting through the water, where the ballistics are entirely different. Really cool systems there, and they also looked really cool. The water itself interacted with the world around it, and again, we'll talk more on that when we get to the water conversation, which was a highlight of the meeting, curiously enough. We saw a few other weapons here. The 1911 throwing knives, the AK-47 was in there. Grenades can be thrown into the water. They have like crazy cool audio there where it's obviously very muffled. It affects the water around those as well. And then also the visuals on this level in particular, there was a shotgun in play, and when you fire that, the flash of the muzzle, and like, I don't know if bullets would actually ricochet in the level, but what appeared to be like ricochet lighting almost, just so cool with the muzzle flashes and the little like sparks that you would see with different lighting assets. The game just, I can't say it enough, looked physically looked incredible. We also got some brief, very brief looks at a couple of other missions. One was called Tower. Basically you were on top of a skyscraper. They just wanted to show off some of the rappelling mechanics that were in pretty early alpha stage. They definitely needed some refining and some work, but they wanted to show off that that's going to be a thing in this game where you can actually rappel down buildings, change up if you want to go in upside down, right side up. Played a little bit more tactically, which was pretty cool. Another mission that probably stood out to me the most was called Convoy. This is essentially a straight vehicle mission, and I think this presents a lot of mechanics for multiplayer and Warzone and whatever the co-op mode might be. We didn't get any information on that for what it's worth, but essentially in this mission they showed a bunch of different vehicles driving down the road, and you're fighting amongst these vehicles. You can stand on top of a vehicle, shoot up forward to the next one, take out the driver, blow out tires, all sorts of stuff like that. Also, they mentioned every vehicle that you could see, you could drive. You can get in, drive it around, get back on top, shoot, move over to the next one, drive that one. Very, very cool scenario that I think could play a lot of interesting roles in a different mode outside of campaign, which I'm personally very, very curious about. So we didn't get much look at that one or the rappelling one. They just wanted to show off some of those new features. Now, like I said, there was a whole little presentation on the water upgrades for this game, which at first I was like, wait, we're talking about water here, but it actually is really cool. Some of it's a lot more technical, so I won't get super in depth in that, but water is going to be a big impact all across the game in all modes. Single player, multiplayer, co-op, Warzone. It's going to be there. It's going to have a presence. They've completely redefined how it works though. There's visual fidelity with how the world interacts with the water, how lighting bounces off of it, how you can see into it and or see out of it. The Warzone map, they basically said would not be like before where you couldn't touch water. So I imagine there's going to be water on the Warzone map that we can actually use. As far as the water simulation goes, there's going to be things like server side waves, but then everything else is based on your client, your point of view. So things like the caustics and the refractions, how the little waves interact with your character and the slight environment around you with bullets, with explosions, stuff like that. It's all server side, so it's going to be very unique to your experience, not necessarily a scripted environment, which again I think is really, really cool. Briefly going over Gunsmith stuff here. There's a lot to break down here, and I want to talk about all of this in a separate video where I can go in more detail. I don't want this video to be too long. I'm trying to keep it concise for you guys so you can get the general rundown. But Gunsmith is going to be back, and it's going to be upgraded. For instance, we saw a LAC-9 SMG where you could equip something like a lightweight suppressor, the Merc foregrip. You could put a laser, ammo, reflex sight. There were a lot of attachment possibilities. You couldn't equip every single one of them, at least based off of that screen it looked like, but it's going to be a similar Gunsmith layout, but a little bit more detailed. There was almost like a little Gunsmith tree of weapon variants. There were things like an M4, then an M16, then a 4.58 SOCOM, then an LMG, and then a laser. And it literally was like a weapon tree. So we didn't get too many details on that, but it basically expanded how you could end up adjusting weapons, and there's going to be ways to really make weapons unique to you and what you want to do with them and build them out. This was a super interesting aspect of Gunsmith, which again I'm going to go into way more detail in a future video. You can actually tune your weapon individually. Barrel tuning. After you level it up, you can tune it for your fire rate, your recoil, whether you want aiming stability or close range precision. Very interesting stuff that is a lot more detailed and will make weapons very, very unique in the game. Like I said, we'll go into more in-depth stuff later on, either this week or early sometime next week. They also talked a bit about bots. Like I said earlier, there's going to be AI in this game in all modes yet again, and they've really refined the way that bots are going to work. Before, you can tell what's an AI player in the game. They walk around very basic, like they don't know what they're doing because they're not a real player. They'll look at random walls, they'll spin around, they'll have very scripted maneuvers and behaviors. Not necessarily the case this time. They've upgraded the behaviors of the bots, the body language, the environmental awareness of where they're at, if they're going to check corners, if they're going to take cover, all sorts of stuff like that. Essentially, bots are not going to look like bots. They also went on to say that there's going to be high AI counts in different modes, where they can actually interact with the world and give maybe those lower skill players a chance to interact with stuff. High skill players won't necessarily need to interact with them or have a need for that, but it's going to be a thing that encompasses basically the entire game, and I don't think that's going to be like a negative thing, like, oh, it's going to be 20 bots on each team to fill out the player count. I don't think that's necessarily the case. Warzone 2, though, they did also mention is going to feature bots. We've heard leaks before about how they may be protecting certain areas and whatnot, like the strongholds. Could very well be a thing. Well, you're going to have to wait and see. We didn't get any in-depth details on that either, but they did say bots AI, I should say, are going to be across all modes. Now, they talked a little bit about Warzone 2, not much here. It's going to have a shared experience with MW2, just like we had shared experiences before. So all the technology, all the features, and the world is going to be shared between both games. That's about all we got for Warzone 2 at the moment. I imagine we're going to see a lot more in the future. They also talked a bit about COD 2.0, the next era of Call of Duty. There's going to be a unified COD engine across all games. The new Warzone experience as an extension of MW2. COD's coming to Steam, which was announced earlier last week. Warzone Mobile is going to be a thing, and then also Ricochet is being upgraded and integrated into Warzone 2 and Modern Warfare 2 as well, so we won't have to worry about no anti-cheat. And then lastly, we get into the multiplayer information, and again, there's a lot of details here. We'll go over all of it more in detail in a future video, so stick it here for that. Make sure you subscribe for that. But essentially, their core pillars of MP are to support established players and have a familiar game for them, but also embrace emergent players. So there's new opportunities to find gameplay experiences, and they focus on having the best multiplayer in the FPS genre as possible. They want to have the #1 FPS MP game, right? So there's content built for all types of play styles, whether you're a super rush heavy player, whether you're more defensive, whether you're more tactical. There's going to be stuff for you in this game. There's going to be 6 default loadouts this year instead of 5 that feature classes built around those 3 play styles: rusher, defensive, tactical, which is pretty cool. There's going to be a lot of variety in one-on-one gunfights dependent on player movement, vehicle engagements, and then also specialized equipment, new field upgrades and whatnot. They actually went into detail with some of those. There's going to be a tactical camera that you can actually jump into and look around. There's going to be a drill charge lethal that actually is like sort of a nade thing. They have a DDoS field upgrade, convenient name there, that's basically an EMP, and an inflatable decoy, which is like a full-on soldier decoy. It's like a balloon, but it's also a trip mine at the same time. It looks kind of funny, and I'm very curious to see how that's going to be implemented into gameplay, because I think that's more of a let's have fun with this one, and maybe not as, oh, this is a super serious, hardcore, like realistic thing. Obviously it has realism basis, but it also is a fun factor as well. When it comes to some of the movement, there are some new upgrades here, and again, I want to talk about this in a later video as well, because there's a lot of details. But there's going to be swimming, there's going to be diving, as in like dolphin diving, not necessarily like diving into the water getting a 10 out of 10 Olympic style, but diving and sliding are both going to be movement mechanics. And then also ledge hanging, so there's going to be like a, not necessarily, I don't want to say parkour aspect, but the ability to use the environment to climb, to peek over a ledge and shoot like that, or maneuver from one ledge to the other in certain ways to gain vantage points, which is all very interesting, I would say. So a lot more movement than what we're used to in COD, which is just going to expand gameplay, in my opinion, to make it even more unique. Speaking of vehicles, there is going to be upgrades to vehicle gameplay where you can lean out of windows, you can climb on rooftops, as I said earlier, you can knock off doors, you can blow out tires. There will be amphibious vehicles and boats and whatnot, and also the sort of remains of cars. If you blow up a car, let's say, usually in COD it's just there, it's blown up, maybe it'll despawn. Now though, that can be shoved into the water, it'll actually float down and create a piece of cover, and they're more interactable there than just being a piece of blown up car that despawns over time, which is pretty cool. They also talked a bit on maps. Unfortunately, because I wasn't in LA, I don't think there was much in-depth talk here with the general maps. They just sort of gave a description of them and what they are, but there's going to be 2 different styles of maps: battle maps, which I took I sort of interpreted as ground war maps or large scale maps, and then also core maps, which is like 6v6 gameplay basically. Battle maps learned a lot from Verdansk. They are built from day one for large scale combat, whether that's blitz, whether that's ground war. They did not go into exact details. It's not just gonna be like the ground war dom though. There will be multiple modes for that. There were 2 different ground war or battle maps that I should talk about here. One was like an urban map, and then also one was like a fishing village. So in the urban map, you could climb buildings, you could interact with all those. In the fishing village map, there was a lot of water involved in that, so you could go underwater and use that as a big part of that gameplay. For the core maps, each of these was built exclusively for 6v6 all across the world. There's a museum map, that one's set in Spain. There's a Grand Prix map, that's a racetrack map set in Asia at night while the race is still going on, so that'll be pretty interesting. Then also Farm 18, which is an undisclosed training facility, I imagine similar to like Shoot House or DOS House, a smaller map like that. But like I said, not too many details on the multiplayer maps. Then also, to round things out, they talked about some new modes, a one called Knockout. This is like gunfight times normal multiplayer with an objective. So it's gunfight where lives count, but also there's a package to collect. And if you have that package, you basically appear on the map as a king. And if you're the last one with that package, you win the game. Then also prisoner rescue, sort of self-explanatory here. This is like breaching and sieging gameplay, but Call of Duty style. There's a team that's protecting the prisoners, a team that wants to save the prisoners. And then the way to win the game is either to go in and extract the prisoners, carry them out, or eliminate the entire other team, whether you're trying to keep the prisoners in your, in your area, or if you're trying to save the prisoners. Both of those teams can eliminate the other fully, and that'll win in the game too. So like S&D times an actual objective. Pretty interesting. So yeah, with all that being said, that is effectively everything I just learned about Modern Warfare 2. Like I said, this was a lot to break down here, so I do want to go ahead and talk about things separately in more confined areas where I can go in and really get into details with you guys. So we'll be covering a bunch of stuff in the coming days. Obviously, we've got the gameplay reveal happening tomorrow with Summer Games Fest. We'll be talking about that, so stick it here for everything going on with MW2, Warzone 2, just Call of Duty in general. Make sure you're subscribed with those noties turned on, and if you enjoyed this video, let me know by dropping a like on it. But that is going to wrap things up for today. Once again, thank you so much for tuning in, and until next time, take it easy, have an awesome rest of your day, and I will catch you guys later. Peace out.